Hi everybody. So, our continuation of working on the elevator from who knows when. So, very special video. This is the very first time we are going to be breaking out and working with epoxy. So, if anyone saw the video where I was actually attaching the elevator fairings out to the elevator tips, these things all get put on with pop rivets. No problem, love pop rivets. What I don't love is the idea of pop riveting into this fiberglass from the back. I've did a couple of pieces, test pieces, and it works, and they didn't split, but I have heard of the fiberglass splitting as the pop rivet gets retracted and starts to mushroom. So what I did after extensive reading is I bought a bag of 100 tiny little washers. I mean, these things are 16 thousandths thick. I mean, they're tiny. That's the same thickness as that rudder skin on the wall of shame behind me. Or from the wall of shame back there. That's 16 thousandths. I can bend that with my fingers. Anyway, the idea is that these washers will sit on the inside of the fiberglass, and after having some epoxy applied, basically bond the washer to the fiberglass on the inside right over the hole. And so that's what I'm doing. And after the epoxy has dried, what you do is you take your number 30 drill bit and you go back through and you match drill again, because no matter how clean you try, you will be getting epoxy into the previously drilled holes, right? And you have to have those holes drilled so that you can see exactly where you're supposed to put the washers. And it's a pretty simple process. As you saw, there you go, I just pump one of each pump into a glass and I start to mix. And I put on my breathing protection. So after a couple of minutes, that epoxy, so it's a two-part epoxy, and I'm using what's called a fast hardener. So epoxy by itself, epoxy resin won't harden into anything. You need to have some kind of activator, kind of like the tank sealant that we used to use to make the fuel tanks. But this basically just turns into a big resin ball. So this is fast hardening activator, which means you really have about 20 minutes before it starts getting tacky. And what I'm doing is I'm leaving it here so that you can see how long. So if you're just spreading it lightly around, it does actually take about 4 to 5 hours to cure. However, if you leave just a cup of it laying around, what happens is it starts to react and it basically just hardens in about 15 minutes. And this thing will be a solid mass. But I didn't stick around until that actually happened. So you'll notice that in this video, that yours truly here, this is covering several days. Because this is one of those hurry up and wait things. So fiberglass is hurry up and wait. Basically, anytime where I had a 20-minute break, I could go out to the airport, mix up a quick batch of epoxy, it takes 2 minutes, get some washers ready, put some epoxy down, put the washers on top, make sure they're settled, drill through any of the ones that were done before, and then continue. Now, sometimes those, whenever you did drill through it, and here's a little close-up of them, so that you can see kind of what it looks like. There you go, look at that. Yeah, way to hold it in front of the camera. So with those washers in place, when the pop rivets get put through and they start going back, now here's the example. So here's the example of why we're doing it. So here's two pieces. As you can see, they're both got pop rivets and they're both metal with fiberglass. The first one will be just straight metal and fiberglass. So there you can see the pop rivets there. But in the second one, you can see that the washer is put in place. And when you hold them up to the side, you can see that. So basically, when I was inspecting it, it did appear as though when it's just metal and fiberglass, that it would start to pull and possibly pull through the fiberglass. So basically, this is just a securing anchor. The total weight of the washers and the extra epoxy resin was like an ounce, so I'm not too worried about my weight and balance. And essentially, yes, all it really does is just hold the washers in place until you can put that on and stick pop rivets through. That's because, I mean, if you think about it, that's all it really does. After that, once you pull the pop rivets, who cares if the epoxy busts after I pull the rivet or as I pop the rivet? Who cares? It is securely in place forever. So that's the first video on that. You just saw me playing with a little drill set. Also, I finally bought myself a drill bit set of all the numbered drill bits, 1 to 60. Anyone that's starting to build, just buy one. You know, you're going to thank yourself later. I mean, outside of number 30s and 40s, which you use all the time, you're going to wind up using, let's see, number 19s, number 24, 27. Those are basically your most common ones, and that's it. Everything else, anytime that the instructions say, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z, you know, you need drill bit number 42, it's nice to just have that set, because you're not going to do more than 10 holes or something, so. Anyway, here I am just replacing the the wing lights, or the wire for the wing lights and the wings. Finally getting around to putting that 3 conductor 18 gauge through, which, man, actually does save some space, but you do need bigger spacers, and I'll talk to that in the next video, or the next time we do this electronics thing. Anyway, see you soon.